to support you with this journey, we have 3 people in our team, which is me, Wei, and Karen. Karen is currently on holiday, but she is also willing to support you too. And please feel free to have your camera on, your mic on, if you want to share anything with us. And at the same time, if you have any questions, any comment, you can also leave it in the chat. We will try to answer your questions or concerns as soon as we can. If not, we will make sure that we get back to you later. And now let me maybe share my screen. Sorry, I'm showing the wrong thing, I think. This is the right one. And give me just 1 minute. Ooh. Oh, I'm moving the wrong thing. Sorry. It's kind of really slow. Maybe this. It should be this one. Excellent. And again, I think I'm showing the wrong thing. This is what I should show. I know. Sorry. I move it here. Maybe let me stop sharing. Sorry. And then. Let me just share my screen again. Okay, I believe this is the right one. So I hope that you can see my screen, and if you are seeing the correct one as I expect, it should say record the session, just a reminder for us not to forget it. And now I'm going to present the slide. There are 2 things which we are going to focus on today. The first one is to get to look at some of the key components of a teaching award application, including a very important thing, which is a statement of teaching philosophy. I'm going to walk you through the first part, and Wei is going to take over for the second part. And before we start, I just want to remind us a little bit about the timeline for the workshops. So we have the RMITV Vietnam Teaching Awards team, and we are going to run 3 workshops in total, just by us. The first one is the info session, and we have 2 other writing workshop, one in April, it means this one. We have another one in July, which is like about 2 months before the submission date. And in between, we have something, it can come from the RMIT Melbourne team, or it can be the collaboration between us. I just want to say that the RMIT Melbourne team is going to run the workshop for the Vice Chancellor's Teaching Awards. But just to let you know that all the suggestions, maybe not all, but most of the suggestions and advices are quite transferable to RMIT Vietnam Teaching Awards. So for instance, like how to evidence your excellence, how to collect evidence, all kind of those things are quite applicable between 2 teaching awards, the RMIT Vietnam and the Vice Chancellor ones. So you can also join the workshop delivered by RMIT Melbourne team. Currently, we have the date for 2 of them, which is one evidencing your application in May and another one in June. So that is just some of the workshops that you can attend. And just a little bit reminder about the categories of the teaching awards. We have 3 of them. I did mention them in the info session. So just go through them very briefly now. You have 2 very teaching focused one on my left-hand side and the left-hand side of the screen. That is the citation and the teaching excellence. And another one is a program and services. Yes, I'm just going to go through this very quickly because we did mention it in the info session. And when we support you, we can also discuss about this a little bit more so that you know which category you should go with. But whatever award category you decide to go with at the end, there are some key components that you have to submit. And one of them is the written statement. The written statement is aimed to address the assessment criteria. They have a different length for different criteria. No, for different categories, sorry. And today we are just going to look at the key component of the written statement, the first component. Okay, the other component, it is not within the focus of today. And now here you go, maybe. Allow me to share my screen in this form. I find it much easier for me to share things. I try to make it as big as I can. This is going to be a little bit interactive. So I'm going to ask you to participate in some of the activities. So the first one is you can use the QR code here to go to the palette site where we have an activity. Okay, so I actually have the palette here with me. So you can use the QR code here or you can use the link. So let me take you to that one. I can share the link in the chat too. So I'm going to send you into, I think, only 2 breakout rooms because we don't have many of us. What I'm going to ask you to do is, as you can see on the palette here, I'm going to invite you to involve in activity number 1 only for now. The thing is, I have the teaching award guideline attached here. So you can just click it and you can see it. Or you can access it from our webpage. It's all right. But I have it here for your convenience. The thing is, after I send you into breakout rooms, can you please just spend about 5 minutes reading the guideline first? And as I said, it's a page 5 to page 6 and also page 10 to page 8 to 10. You spend about 5 minutes to read it, and then you discuss with each other around 5 more minutes. And you write down here on the palette which you think are the key component of a written statement of a teaching award application. Are you familiar with palette? If you are, give me a thumbs up so I can know. Maybe I don't need to let you know how to use it. Okay. Okay, what about other colleagues? Are you familiar with using palette? Okay, excellent. I have some thumbs up, which is great. Yes. So we don't have 3 groups because it's not many of you. So I'm just going to send you into 2 groups. Okay. And you do for me activity number 1. Is there any questions for now? So it's going to be 10 minutes. I'm going to stop the activity and invite you to come back to this session. Okay, that's great. Let's see. So I'm going to set out the rooms. I'm going to just automatically group you into rooms. Yes, so now I'm going to create the rooms. Wei and I might manage to join you a little bit. Yeah. Okay, excellent. Thanks a lot. So I can see that you have added something here. One thing is about like crowded in teaching and learning scholarship. Yes, it's very important to explain how your practices are supported by the literature. So it also means that you have to add references at the end of your written statement. So thanks a lot for that. And now let me get back to the slide. And again, yes, I just maybe I prefer to go with this slide first. So I just want to say that what we give you in the sample is just one way to approach the application. And the important thing in a teaching a word application is each of you has a different story. So it's really highly appreciated that you have some personal and individual touch in your application. So the sample is just one way for you to approach it, right? And now me move to another part. However, to help you start thinking about how you want to write your story, how do you want to tell the story to other people, we have a tool which I think can be quite useful, but it's just a starting point, okay? We call it the application planner. I did introduce you to it very briefly in the info session, and now let me go back to it. Let me see, I can find it here. So one way to find the application planner is you go to our hub page and then the applicant resources. And then you have a lot of things here, but we have one thing in the folder which is called to use before and while drafting your application. And we have something which is the planner. Okay. So you can go through this and it can be quite a helpful starting point for you. I just copy and paste all the items I put in this planner onto the slide so that we can go through them very quickly now. So this is the thing we include in that application planner, right? You can start by state your context and then your philosophy of teaching and practices. If your application is about designing curriculum, for instance, right? So it's also about like what do you think is a curriculum is and what do you think a good approach to designing curriculum is. And number two, it is about the challenges or the problems that you identify. And then what is the evidence of the challenge or problem? Because sometimes we think it is a problem, but actually it may be not. So you need, let's say, like to collect evidence to say that, okay, the problem is real. And there are different ways for you to do that. For instance, like when you take over a new course, you see the level of engagement is very low, and the evidence can come from different sources. Like when you talk to students directly, they say, it is not that highly engaging or interesting for me, or it can come from the CS score. It comes from different channels. The important thing is you show us some of the evidence that the problem is real. Number two is, okay, so as soon as you see the problem, what you decided to do to respond to that problem or challenge. And why you respond to the problem or the challenge in that way, right? So you explain it. And when you explain it, one thing you can do is to cite the literature to support you. And then you say to what extent the challenges or problems were addressed. And this is the time when you say about the evidence, right? You have a different sources of evidence. It can be both quantitative and qualitative. So if you say that what you have done help to engage student more, so you can look at, let's say, sometimes you do informal survey on what students think, and then you have some data to show us like 99% of students were happy with the new changes, for instance. Or you can have some qualitative feedback from students when they say this is amazing, right? I find it so good because of this and that. So that is the evidence. And then there is one important part that is how you evaluate the change. There is one thing which is when we decide to do something, it doesn't mean that it might work right away from the beginning, right? From the first try. So it's important that you keep evaluating it and see if there is any changes you need to make or not. So that is about the evaluation. And as one of our colleagues mentioned, it should be included in your application. And then, okay. So what you do, is it shared or implemented or scaled up beyond the initial scope? So it's about the adoption and recognition from other people and the institution or from other courses, right? Your colleague might observe what you do and they think it's amazing, it's so good, so they use it and adopt it in their own courses. So it's about number 9. And it's really good if you can share with us a little bit if you have shared your practices in some scholarly platforms, for instance, like in conferences or even publication, right? That really good. Is there anything that you want to add? So basically, you tell us how, why, and what of your practices, and also the impact. So that is something is I think it's a very good starting point for you to think about what sort of story is, what you want to tell us, and how you want to tell us. But again, allow me to get back to this point, which is the teaching award application is a very personal. It's your own story, so we do appreciate some personal touch in it. And the important thing is about the readability. It means you're making a very compelling argument. And my observation is I have been supporting applicants for teaching awards in 2021. And the readability has been much improved recently. And I am risking making a guess here, but I think maybe with the help of AI, so the readability can be improved a little bit. But my own observation is when you use AI, there are pros and cons. And for this particular context, something you can see is application can be a little bit similar to each other in a certain way, which means you are losing the uniqueness and the personal touch of your application. So that is something you can consider when you use the tools to help you a little bit. And one important thing is don't be humble. Okay, in the teaching award application, it's not the place for you to be humble, but at the same time, don't overclaim. That is why you need evidence to demonstrate your impact. And the important thing is you need to show that you are not just doing your job. It needs to be more than that. It needs to be something really outstanding. So that is some of my thought and sharing about this part. And now, so far, any questions or any comment before we move on and give it to Wei? Sorry, Wei, I run a little bit over time.
That's okay.
Any questions, any comment, or any concerns that you might have? If you don't want to speak it out, you're more than welcome to just like put it in the chat. We will get back to you later if we cannot do it now.
Okay. Do you mind hitting the foreplay of the slide?
Sure, let me do it when I show your part. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know what it is for you, but for me, I always prefer this one. I find it easier. But I will do it to the present mode for you. No
yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Yang Wei. You can call me Wei. I'm actually based in Saigon. Oh, sorry, in Hanoi. So a lot of you might have never met me before. Yeah. So we talk about teaching philosophy. We got 15 minutes to talk about it, but it's not something that very complicated. Could I just have a thumb up? You can use the reaction about thumb up if you have written any teaching philosophy in the past. No one? Okay, I see. Yeah, to be honest, I was yeah, Phúc. What's up?
No. I mean, I press react, but it doesn't work somehow.
Oh, okay.
I think
thank
other
you.
colleagues may have the same problem. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So you might have written teaching. Okay. In that case, can we just type number 1 if we have written teaching philosophy in the past? Just if you type number 1, that probably easier. Thank you, Phúc and Danny, and Dan. Okay, so some of you are already familiar with this concept, teaching philosophy, right? Can you remember what Phúc had just showed us, right? She has showed us a planner, application planner that I posted on the chat. So the first question is about, that you got to answer in this planner, is actually about your teaching context and your teaching philosophy. if we go back to the sample that Phuc has just showed us, the sample that we got from other university that has won the Australian Teaching Citation Award, where can you find that teaching philosophy? Is it in the beginning of the sample or is it at the end?
Yes, it is in the beginning, right? In the sample about the low stress handling
Yes,
something. Yeah.
correct. Damn, good memory. Yeah, so
Okay.
it's in the beginning of. We're going to talk about why, right? Why it's in the beginning. But let's look at the definition first. What do you think is teaching philosophy? Let's just post some keywords into that. What is the teaching philosophy? You don't need to write the whole sentence. You don't need to go to ChatGPT. Just answer with your gut feeling. What is teaching philosophy? Some phrases.
Yeah, with me, teaching philosophy is about my belief, how my students learn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And yeah, like I want to see my role during their learning process. So like I have yeah, in economics normally we work with some complex economics modeling.
Mm-hmm.
So how student can grasp the economics model. So I have to break down the big model into small concepts. So
Yeah.
my philosophy is like take student to go small steps and then combine on the small concepts to make the big picture. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's what I try.
Yes. Very good, very good. You have mentioned both. I think talk about both how students learn, right, and how you approach that
Yeah.
learning, how you facilitate that learning, and you also
Mm,
talk about your teaching strategy. How do you help students learn? That's very
yeah.
good. And then we also see some Teams messages here from Fun about your way of teaching, Phuc, what's teaching and what is learning. Great. And then about pedagogical approach and goals. Correct. Yes, it's about goals as well. And Danny, your approach, your theory. Yes, theory is very important because your teaching philosophy needs to be grounded in certain theory. And Luan talked about what guides and brings meaning to our teaching. Very good. So we can look at the definition here. That's from again, that's from the scholarship. Could you please move to the next slide? I don't know if I can control the slide. Yeah. So we talk about this Schönwetter et al. They're talking about the teaching philosophy is a systematic and critical rationale. So this critical part is what actually Danny mentioned about theory. So your teaching philosophy is grounded in certain theory, and then it's including important components. For example, that could be components defining effective teaching and learning, what effective teaching and learning is in a particular discipline and or institutional context. So if you're in for example, if you're teaching business in MBA classes, or if you're teaching business in a local college, because of context different, then your approach to learning, to teaching will be different. So remember the institutional context and discipline, and also what your students are, because they are going to shape your teaching philosophy. But could you please move on? So we're going to look at this 5 components, but I think we already got all the answers here about what comprise the teaching philosophy. So if you look at this framework from Chisholm, that actually give you a very comprehensive picture of what teaching philosophy is. So she divided into beliefs, intentions, and actions. So the belief is about conceptualization of learning. What do you think? How do students learn? Conceptualization of teaching. How are you facilitate that learning? And then intentions. So intentions about the goals. What sort of goals do you set for your students? Do you want them to develop content knowledge, but do you also want them to be, for example, they are industry oriented, or you want them to develop softer skills? So those are your goals. And as teachers, we might hold different goals for your students. And then actions, which include implementation of the philosophy and your professional growth plan, which is very much related to the descriptors. So if you look at our rubrics for teaching philosophy, we'll be looking at, you will be talking about your growth plan, and you're also talking about how you implement. So can we think, if we have belief, intention, and actions, which part do you think goes to the beginning of your application? Which part would go to the middle or the end of your application? The beliefs, intentions, and actions. Okay, let's say if we go the beginning of the application, no matter which category you are applying for, if we want to write something, the teaching philosophy, which bit would be go to the beginning? Fun sets, beliefs. Yes, the answer is correct. It's about your beliefs. So you have your beliefs in the beginning, but what about intention actions? Which part would it address? So intention, I think intention could also be quite early on. You could be talking about what sort of students you want to cultivate, what sort of goals do you have for your discipline, for your course. What about the actions? Where would you put the actions? The actions will be about your implementation. What do you do in your classes? How do you evidence your teaching effectiveness? Think about the sample. If we had more time, we'd be looking at sample again. One says addressing the criteria. That's the evidence. Yes. You're also very welcome just to turn your microphone and speak. So the actions will be about your practice, right? What you do, how do you implement that philosophy? And yes, Fun, you also provide evidence. If you look at the sample, actually a very big part of it is the evidence. It's your practice and your evidence that's grounded in literature. The literature will also support your teaching philosophy. Okay, if we could you move to the next slide? Yeah. So next time we're going to look at some questions. So these questions, I think you might also find them on the planner. If not, just go back to this slide. We'll share the slide with you on the hub page. So that would help you to answer your teaching philosophy. So how do students learn? How do I facilitate that learning? So that would be the conceptualization of learning and teaching, right? And what goals and what do I teach? And evaluation, are these things working? How do I know they're working? And what is my future goal for growth as a teacher? Let's move on to some examples. Let's look at example to be more specific. Unfortunately, because of the time, we'll probably only have time to look at one example about teaching philosophy. So let's just have a very quick look about this teaching philosophy. And let's think, what is the writer's conceptualization of learning and teaching? And how can this teaching philosophy be improved? Thinking about your application. Okay, so if it's a teaching philosophy in the teaching and work application in RMITV Vietnam. Okay, I'll give you 2 minutes. So by 2:57, say 2:57, let's look at the questions, okay? Or think about your answers. If it's too short time. I can see Tam is typing. Can you? Yeah, Tam. Yes.
I think I prefer speaking.
Yeah,
than
yeah, just speak.
typing.
Yeah. Let's look at the first question. What is the writer's conceptualization in learning and teaching?
Yeah, I think yeah, his belief is about learning is a process and depending on the learner's prior knowledge and background.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, somehow he put his belief about at the end of the paragraph, right?
Uh-huh.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, he's done some conceptualization of learning, and
Uh-huh.
his teaching about his teaching. Uh, yeah, I'm okay. About he believed that teaching about putting things into practice.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think? Do you think it's clear enough?
No, to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Not to you. What
Yeah.
would
Yeah.
you change? What do you think can be improved?
Like when we learn about physics, right?
Mm,
Physics is quite typical
mm,
course, and like how the learning happen with physics. With me, I think physics should be with experiments, and he's okay with practice. But what is a practice, right? Like
uh-huh.
maybe
Yeah.
he get people exposed to some experiments and get people curious about the effects of the experiments, physics
Mm-hmm.
experiments.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the best I can say. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Very good.
Yeah,
And also, like Pierre said, Pierce, thank you, Tam.
yeah,
Yes, you can see that as a prior knowledge, sort of indicating that students learn, and you got to consider that prior knowledge and background, right? So there's sort of like constructivism going on, but it's not clearly identified. And we also talk about physics. Tam talk about physics, yes. Physics courses, what would be the special, what students learn in physics classes, because that would be different from other classes, right? So some sort of clearly identification here about how students learn in physics classes would be good. Then talk about as a learning process and not only inside classroom, but extend to outside, yes. And Pierce said more clarification, Pierce said, on basic principles, yes. So the teacher here talk about basic process, but what are the basic principles, right? So what are the basic principles that guide his or her teaching? So again, that's not clear. How student learn exactly is not clear. How he facilitates learning and teaching is also not clear. We also talk about teaching philosophy as a critical, it should be grounded in literature, right? Is there any literature here? Yeah, great, Folk, yes, you got it right. You get my next point, the literature is missing. If you look at teaching and word application, in the beginning, when we talk about our beliefs in how students learn and how we should teach them, we should facilitate that learning, they are all grounded in literature. So if you don't have any literature at the moment, because quite often we teach intuitively, right? But you can actually just observe your students and think how they actually learn, or you could reflect your practice and relate that to literature, or you could just give ChatGPT, look, this is how I do my classes, and what sort of literature do you think I should be using here? But always always evaluate the output from ChatGPT. Actually go and check that literature from ChatGPT. Okay, I'm very aware that it's already 3:02, so we're just going to move on. But if you have questions, please feel free just to post it in the comments here. So let's just go to the last slide, the second last slide about the TPI.
Sure, yeah. My laptop is quite slow in responding. So you want me to go to this one, right?
Yes, please. Yes.
Yeah.
So this is just to show you that this is if you are still not if you're still thinking about your teaching philosophy at this stage, you could go and do this teaching perspective TPI. I think some of us have already done that. So that would give you some ideas about, you can do a survey there that would help you to identify what you believe in good, what is good teaching, what is effective teaching. And also this philosophy statement, these their transmission, apprenticeship, developmental, nurturing, social reform, they are actually grounded in this literature about theories of teaching and learning. So another way to start your teaching philosophy is actually thinking about your, you can actually think about metaphor. That's a way, it's an interesting way to describe your teaching philosophy. It's good to catch the attention from your audiences. So if you look at this handout, this article is very interesting. You talk about different theories and using metaphor. For example, you have a guide. Learning is a journey, a travel journey, and you're a guide as a teacher. Yeah, go and have a check out, or like I say, you could also ask ChatGPT about sort of your tell ChatGPT about your practice and what sort of teaching philosophy that might indicate what literature could be used to state your teaching philosophy, or you could share with me and Phuc. Thank you very much, everyone, and that's about teaching philosophy. Sorry that this has been a little bit rushed, and okay, but feel free to ask me any questions. I'll stay for about 2 minutes, and I can see down that the website access is blocked. Okay, yes, so let's fix that. I will just find the article first and then I'll share with you, and then we will fix the link.
Yes, all the documents and the materials and even the recording will be shared on our hub. It might take a couple of days for us to upload the things, but definitely it will happen very soon. Okay, so any question? Do we give time to question, Wei?
Yeah, so now I've shared it in the chat. We are also fixed the link. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a good rest of your Wednesday.
Yes, so please feel free to leave the meeting. Wei and I might stay a little bit longer, like 2 or 3 minutes, just in case you have any questions.
Thank you, Wei and Phuc.
Thank you.
Phuc.
Bye.
Thank you, Wei. Bye bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye. Have a good rest of the day.
Bye.